Welcome to Asian American Life. I'm your host, Ernabel Demillo. I'm at Pinto International in the East Village, an art gallery that features the works of contemporary Filipino artists. Their current exhibit is Under the Bells, art reflecting the Filipinos' relationship with religion and spirituality. The bells refer to the church bells that rang during 400 years of Spanish colonialism. Every month, the gallery tackles different themes with one goal.
We like to call it the promotion of cultural diplomacy through contemporary art. Diplomacy is basically the interaction between different countries and how to make sure that these interactions are fruitful and for all the parties involved.
Now here's a look at what's ahead on our show.
Bike crackdown. How will New York legislation hurt delivery workers? Eddie Bailey has that story. Minnie Roh discovers one volunteer clinic that's trying to solve the healthcare crisis. Citizenship for all. What does this national movement mean for Asian Americans? Konrad Aderer follows their journey. All laced up, Susan Jhun meets the designer behind Nike sneakers. This and more on Asian American Life.
If you stand on any New York City street, you'll see deliverymen racing against time on their e-bikes delivering food. But Mayor Bill de Blasio is cracking down on these e-bikes, and that could impact low-paid immigrant workers. Anthony Sewell and Eddie Bailey has that story.
There's a kind of like common story. You come to this country, you don't have any support or connection, but you work your back, like work every day as much as you can just to survive.
Coming to this country is a dream for most, and in New York City, many immigrants find work as delivery workers. Most delivery workers depend on electric bikes or e-bikes. But when Mayor de Blasio announced a citywide crackdown on e-bikes, their livelihoods were put in jeopardy. Jing Wang, filmmaker and adjunct professor at Queens College, documented their story and the political fight that ensued in her documentary film, A Winter with Delivery Workers.
So my original idea is just to tell a couple of delivery workers' story, but then pedestrians complain how dangerous they are to the New York street.
In October 2017, in response to complaints, the mayor held a press conference.
Electronic bicycles going the wrong way down streets, weaving in and out of traffic, ignoring traffic signals. If a regular bicycle does that, that's a problem, but an electronic bicycle that's so much faster creates a real danger.
In 2018, the city announced they were going to permit City Bike to release thousands of pedal-assisted electric bikes, which is a type of electric bike that can attain speeds up to 20 miles per hour, but not throttle-assisted bikes, the type of e-bikes delivery workers use. Do Lee, assistant professor at Queens College, explains the difference.
The difference between a pedal assist and a throttle assist is how you activate the electric assist. With the pedal assist, you have to pedal like a bicycle in order for it to give you that electric assist. With a throttle, you just simply turn the throttle and it gives you that electric assist. One is not necessarily faster than the other.
Throttle-assisted bikes are used more by delivery workers because they tend to be more affordable and reduce chances of long-term injuries because they don't have to pedal. Because workers use these bikes, they are disproportionately targeted by the NYPD.
This year already there's been over 900 electronic bikes confiscated by the NYPD. And we thank you for that.
Jing helped Do organize the workers by serving as the Mandarin translator between the workers and the Biking Public Project, an organization that represents cyclists of color. This was the beginning of their political fight.
大家举手，因为害怕被抓，没有去工作，影响到你们工作的。
求生存就是要求电单车合法化。
It's very hard because it's very closed community. They are mainly Chinese men from countryside. So their mindset is very traditional, I would say. They think a woman should stay home and a lot of things women shouldn't do. Slowly, I gain respect from them because they realize I'm I never took a penny from them. I always do the work for them and try to help them the best I can.
Their advocacy caught the attention of Assemblywoman Minnie Roh.
The data is very clear that e-bikes are not a huge public hazard. They really made a huge effort to come to Albany to advocate for this bill.
Rosick says that because of Doe and Jing's advocacy, things were able to happen quickly. And with the help of Senator Jessica Ramos, Bill 5294 passed in the New York State Senate.
Ayes 56, nays 5.
The bill is passed.
When the Senate passed the bill, I couldn't stop crying. It was just so moving that moment. We've been working on this for several years, and I think that's why seeing the passage of the bill, it felt so affirming.
Lee cautions that the bill doesn't go into effect until 180 days after the governor signs it. Currently, the signing date is to be determined. As for Jing, she hopes that when people see her film, they can experience a day in the life of an immigrant delivery worker.
At the beginning of this project, I heard immigrant delivery workers was called street rat. In mainstream media, I truly feel now delivery workers, they are actually street heroes.
This is Anthony Sewell for Asian American Life.
I'm Minnie Roh. The healthcare system in America is difficult to navigate, even when you're a native-born English-speaking citizen. Add into that language difficulties and other barriers to entry like legal status, it's no wonder that a huge number of immigrants, including the undocumented ones, are falling into the quagmire of the medically uninsured. But thanks to a network of clinics across the country offering free preventative health care, this population, which includes Asian immigrants, are getting the help they need.
What's the emergency?
워낙에 건강해서 제가 이때까지 살아오면서 감기도 잘 안 알아요.
Hi, how are you? Soon Hwang came to America as a missionary from South Korea 20 years ago. She doesn't have health insurance because, as an independent contractor, she says it's too expensive, and she had always been relatively healthy. What she didn't know is that she is suffering from a disease that doctors call the silent killer.
혈압이 너무 높은 걸 몰랐는데 우연히 쟀을 때 혈압이 너무 높아서 너무 높았는데 머리가 띵하고 좀 아팠어요.
Doctors would have caught her high blood pressure sooner, but Hwang never went for annual checkups because she didn't have medical coverage. Then she heard about a clinic in Bergen County, New Jersey that offered free medical care.
We have people who come in here who have not seen a doctor in 10 years. And they know they don't feel well, but they don't know why it is. And they come here and their hemoglobin A1C levels, which are what we look at for diabetes, are off the charts. So they're diabetic, like full-blown diabetic.
Amanda Missy is president and CEO of Bergen Volunteer Medical Initiative, a nonprofit organization in Hackensack, New Jersey, that offers culturally competent, free primary preventative care for low-income county residents who are uninsured.
People who don't have insurance would either go to the emergency room and they will get billed for something that will just completely crater the family because the bills are so high.
It's an issue particularly prevalent in the immigrant population, where many are self-employed and are small business owners. They fall into a gray area. They make too much money to qualify for government assistance, but cannot afford private health care insurance. The Kaiser Family Foundation, a nonprofit focusing on national health, found that when people do not have medical insurance, half the time they won't seek routine preventative care, and even worse, will postpone or go without treatment for sicknesses due to the costs involved. While the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, implemented in 2014, resulted in a drop overall in the numbers of the medically uninsured, there is still a large swath of immigrants who remain vulnerable. The KFF found that only 10% of citizens are uninsured. But when it comes to immigrants, that percentage increases dramatically, especially for the undocumented.
The reality is that people who don't have insurance end up paying more money for the same thing that people who have health insurance pay for, because things have been negotiated by insurance companies and hospitals.
BVMI is staffed by fully licensed healthcare professionals who are, for the most part, semi-retired volunteers giving back to their community. BVMI is part of a larger network of clinics called Volunteers in Medicine, with 90 clinics in 29 states, all of which offer free quality health care within their communities. There are about 45 million immigrants in this country, with the majority of them living in California, Texas, and the New York region. Bergen County, New Jersey has the highest concentration of Korean American residents nationwide. In 2018, BVMI implemented a Korean patient program and hired a bilingual Korean coordinator and a nurse practitioner. BVMI hopes to set up a similar program for other Asian populations in the future.
A lot of our Korean patients haven't been able to go to the hospital for a very long time. So when they do come to BVMI, we discover various illnesses. Definitely when we see Korean patients improving in a span of a couple months, we know that their lives are being changed. So it is really exciting to be able to see such tangible change in front of me.
Our patients are very grateful for what they get here. They feel like they're seen here. People listen to them and they take really good care of them. So that's the kind of place that we want to have.
We will get to her back about mammogram.
As for Huang, she says she is grateful to have found BVMI before her health issues evolved into something that could have been catastrophic. BVMI is funded 100% from contributions from private donors, corporate sponsorships, and foundation partners. The cost for care per patient totals $1,000 a year. I'm Minnie Roh for Asian American Life.
Thousands of Asian Americans are fighting for immigrant rights, including a group called NAKASEC, which stands for National Korean American Service and Education, and they've been leading marches across the country. Documentary filmmaker Konrad Aderer follows their journey.
We all should have the chance not just to survive, but to thrive, to pursue our dreams, our passions, and our vision without fear.
In November of 2019, NAKASEC kicked off a march to defend DACA and TPS, temporary protective status, at the Supreme Court. NAKASEC was founded by Korean Americans in the 1990s. Asian American Life spoke with 3 of their organizers. Though born in Korea, they have spent most of their lives in the U.S. and consider it home. But being undocumented has made it a struggle for them to get an education and start a career.
What people don't often realize is that immigration status affects really the smaller aspects of your daily life. So, for example, I could be driving down the highway and see a police car and my heart will just drop immediately. That's a very terrifying moment for me to have to walk past law enforcement.
I didn't have the fear of deportation until I was 21. I knew that my life was different and it posed challenges, but I didn't realize what it meant until I became undocumented.
The fear is real of not only being deported, being separated from family, and being separated from loved ones and your friends, and yeah.
We are the marchers! We are the marchers! The mighty, mighty marchers! Mighty, mighty marchers! Fighting for DACA!
I'm one of the 99% of undocumented immigrants that don't have DACA. And I felt as though throughout my whole life, I felt invisible and I felt silenced.
NAKASEC has strong alliances with different immigrant communities, but with the national conversation on immigration largely focused on Latinx issues, NAKASEC gives voice to Asian American immigrants who have felt marginalized.
I grew up being afraid of the Korean community and being afraid to talk about my status. So seeing members of my community really being vocal and really being out there to defend this program drew me into them. And so I reached out.
I feel like even in the very short amount of time that I've worked with them and known them, I feel like I've gained another family, and I feel a sense of security with it, which is something as an undocumented person in this country you don't often have.
Asian Americans were the first people to be excluded in the United States from immigrating here. I do think that considering the history of Asian migration to the United States, Asian Americans should have a more central role in the way we think about immigration in this country.
NAKASEC and their partners marched the 230 miles from New York City to Washington, D.C. to protect DACA. But their group's vision of justice looks far beyond DACA or the DREAM Act. Their ongoing campaign seeks citizenship for all.
What often gets depicted in the media is, oh, Esther is a dreamer, like Esther went to college, Esther did this and this and this, therefore she should get citizenship.
I think everyone deserves protections, including the parents of DACA recipients or people who say have made mistakes in the past, because DACA was very clear in the narrative that it posed.
When NAKASEC members were invited to attend the Democratic presidential candidate debate in September, they saw an opportunity to highlight the discussion of immigration. While NAKASEC held a rally outside the venue, Esther and Jung Woo watched the candidates from the audience.
When we were invited, right, from the candidate, we specifically told them to please say something about protecting DACA, because 800,000 people's life really at risk. Your voice is power. Please say something about it. And I thought they were gonna do it. But I was waiting. And they didn't say anything.
If they weren't going to talk about immigration, then we were going to talk about immigration. We were going to make sure that it hit the national headlines that night.
Things that are unimportant.
We are DACA recipients. Our life at risk. Save DACA in the Supreme Court now.
Save DACA in Supreme Court right now! We are DACA!
I think I want to be really clear that DACA is the very minimum. In a lot of ways, I think about it as just getting breadcrumbs, like I'm getting enough to get by every day, but I definitely need more, and the other 11 million undocumented immigrants need more.
If you focus on like what kind of world that we want to live in, you want to be part of it, right? And then if you can create that space during the election season, we can have really power.
Because we know organizing works. When we organize, we win!
We're trying to accomplish citizenship for all non-citizens. That's what we want. We want justice for our communities. We want to make sure that no one has to fear being separated from their families or loved ones. That's really ultimately our goal. And I know that we're going to keep working until we achieve that.
He grew up on the streets of New York City, cultivating a sense of style. And although his path to success was unconventional, Jeff Staple has become one of the most influential names in streetwear. Basic essential elements. That's how designer Jeff Staple describes his Staple Streetwear, a brand at the forefront of street style since 2005, when Staple created the Nike SB Pigeon Dunk, a sneaker sensation that caused a riot.
Nearly 100 self-proclaimed sneakerheads got into a shoving match as they waited for the doors to open and the chance to buy one of only 20 pairs of pigeons.
The footwear frenzy made the news, and the collaboration with Nike on the limited edition sneaker dedicated to New York City with its pigeon-like appearance catapulted Staple to sneaker legend status.
This is the infamous pigeon dunk right there.
Yes,
Yeah.
wow. So this shoe now goes for how much if someone was trying to get one?
$30,000.
Wow.
Yeah, and
That's
the original
amazing.
price was $100.
After Pigeon landed, Staple was credited with bringing sneaker subculture to mainstream, resulting today in a $100 billion retail sneaker industry and a multi-billion-dollar resale industry.
Sneaker culture was a very underground niche thing, and literally on February 23rd, 2005, the day after the Pigeon Dunk released, everyone and their mom and their grandma now knew that sneaker culture was a thing.
I sat down with the head sneakerhead to talk about his journey creating Staple Design, which has two divisions, Staple Pigeon Streetwear and creative agency Staple Design Studio, a design empire built by Staple from the ground up, starting in 1997 with just a few handmade t-shirts.
I walked into a store and the store just said, like, I like that t-shirt you're wearing, like, where can I buy that? And I said, I made it. And they were like, oh, if you make 12, bring them into the shop. So that's how sales began.
At the time, Staple was Jeff Ng, a student at Parsons School of Design using unconventional means to make his t-shirts.
My silkscreen teacher was like, no, you're not allowed to print on t-shirts here. And I was like, why? Like, what does it matter to you? You know, and she's just like, no, you can't. And I was like, I hate when people just say, no, you can't, and can't give me like a valid reason, right? So me and a friend decided that we would break into the silkscreen lab at night and just start printing shirts on our own. And that's what we did. We would buy pillowcases full of blank t-shirts on Canal Street. And then we would just bring in the pillowcase and like we would leave a window unlocked in the silkscreen lab during the day. And then we would know which window was unlocked, open it, and then throw the t-shirts in, and then we would climb in, and then we would be printing like all night long.
Soon, Staple was getting orders for thousands of t-shirts, turning his creative pastime into a full-fledged business. Staple assumed the name he devised for his brand, signifying the basics, and dropped out of school to pursue his business. At the same time, Staple was growing his graphic design firm and designing album covers for hip-hop record label Rawkus and the music magazine Fader. Then came his career-changing collaboration with Nike. 15 years later, Staple has expanded his reach, stamping his signature logo of a pigeon on a range of brands from Sprite to Timberland.
So you could see like all the hairy suede, and then I added the zipper because I think it's hard to put Timberland boots on.
If Staple's path to success seems unconventional, it's only fitting for a guy who's led an unconventional life. Born in New Jersey to immigrants from China, Staple was educated on the streets of New York City as his parents ran an importing business in Chinatown.
Very early on, like from 12 or 13 years old, they were like, just go and roam around the city, like, you know, just come back by 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock when we go home, you know? But it was like real, you know, it was like graffiti was still everywhere, you know, sort of con games were happening everywhere, like, you know, just a lot of interesting characters.
And it set the stage for Staple's interest in street culture. In school, Staple says he bucked the stereotype of the overachieving Asian as a very average student who was one of only 3 Asians in his entire school.
So there was no sort of people of color minority representation whatsoever. And that also had an effect on me because basically from the ages of 0 to like 18, I was kind of ashamed to be Asian, to be honest. You know, like I didn't want friends to come over. I didn't like them smelling the foods that like, you know, my grandmother was cooking, and I didn't want to bring my lunch in, and they just didn't get it, you know. And I don't want to say that there was like overt racism, but like ridicule and name calling was an everyday thing.
Staple says when he went to work in streetwear, he was once again a minority.
And so there's always this thing about like trying to find the balance between representing who I am without drawing too much attention to myself at the same time, you know?
But Staple says his heritage has always been an innate source of pride and shaped many of his early decisions.
It's so funny. I was actually a big fan, and my family was too, of Connie Chung, right? Connie Chung was like the OG, like Connie Chung was like, if you immigrated here to America, Connie Chung's like, look, we've made it. There's Connie Chung on television. Like, we've made it, right? And so when I went to NYU, I saw journalism as a major. And so I said, like, I told my parents, I'm gonna try journalism. And they're like, you could be the next Connie Chung. We like that. That's a good, it's not doctor or lawyer or accountant, but it is Connie Chung-esque, so fine.
Although Staple dropped out of NYU to pursue design, he did eventually put his journalism skills to use when he wrote an article for Fader that ultimately led to his collaboration with Nike.
So that's really how I got into bed with Nike, is like just purely as an investigative reporter.
So you are Connie Chung. It all comes full circle.
It all comes full circle.
Staple's sense of humor and humility are no doubt part of his appeal in a business built on expression.
To this day, 20 years in, when I see a kid wearing a Staple shirt, I'm floored. I'm like, holy cow, I don't even know that person, and he's wearing my clothes. It's crazy.
And Staple is once again putting his journalism skills to use with his new podcast called The Business of Hype on Hype Beast Radio. For Asian American Life, I'm Susan Jhun.
That's our show for now. If you want to learn more about Pinto International, check out their website at pintoart.org. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Asian American Life. I'm Ernabel Demillo. We'll see you next time.